Good morning. Uh, like in today's video, let me start with the module 5 of VLSI design. So module 5 is memory, registers, and aspects of system timing. So we have system timing considerations. So what all points should be considered while dealing with the memories or the basic storage elements. So some commonly used storage or memory elements. And the second part of module 5 deals with the testing and verification. So introduction, the logic verification principles, and manufacturing test principles, and we call it as DFT. DFT stands for design for testability. So in the first part of module 5, so we have some basic points regarding the memory, the importance of memory and classification, and the memory characteristics. So basically, so we have some predefined questions. Say the circuit and explanation operation of one transistor dynamic memory cell, as well as 3 transistor dynamic RAM cell. So then pseudo static RAM or register cell, and 6 transistor dynamic and 6 transistor static CMOS memory cell. So we have the individual diagrams and explanation for each and every kind of memory cells. Okay, so before going to the actual concepts, let me deal with some basic fundamentals regarding the memories. Okay, so some basics before we go for the actual concept. Okay, so we have heading called as MOS memories, so metal oxide semiconductor memories. So we need to have some basic background or information regarding the memories. So these memories are an integral part of electronic circuits or systems. So you can't imagine any system without memory. Okay, so for all electronics devices, so we have the most important part is the memory. So for all the electronic systems or circuits, so no system is there that is not having memory. Means all systems will be having some amount of memory so as to store the information or the data. And these are semiconductor memories. Okay, SE stands for semiconductor. So these SE memories, semiconductor memories, is the boss of computer technology. So like nowadays, you have a lot of advancements regarding the computer technology, and the main reason for this is these semiconductor memories. Hence, we say that these semiconductor memories will be acting as the boss of computer technology. So because of the advanced techniques what we have in the implementation of memories only, so these semiconductor memories are called as the boss of the computer technology. So like the memory can be classified based upon the following factors. So one is the operation mode, data storage mode, and access mode. So based upon the operation mode, the memory can be classified as a read-write memory, also called as RAM, or it can have a ROM, read-only memory. So based upon the data storage mode, so we can have a volatile kind of a memory as well as non-volatile kind of a memory. So what do you mean by this volatile memory? Means the information will be stored until we are able to supply the power. Okay. So once the power is lost or once the power is gone, means the information stored will be lost. Okay. So that sort of memory we call it as volatile memory. So whereas non-volatile memory means even though we have the loss of power, right, even then the information will be stored in the memory elements. Okay. So based upon the access method, you can classify memories as random access and non-random access or sequential access kind of a memory elements. So regarding the operation mode, I can have a read-write memory. So where like this read-write memory is also called as RAM. Okay. And these read-write memory or RAM can be reprogrammed again and again. So for example, static RAM, dynamic RAM, then erasable programmable read-only memory, EEPROM, okay, electrically erasable programmable read-only memory, EEPROM or flash. So when compared to the read-only, means once the program is being written while manufacturing, or user can do it using some ROM programmer. So, but the programming can be done only once. Okay, so programs and these read-only memories will be programmed once while manufacturing, or any user can dump his code, okay, using some ROM programmer, like using some ROM programmer. So, but the programming can be done only once. Hence, we call this as a read-only memory. So, example for this will be the mask ROM, okay, so mask program ROM, or fusible link ROM. So, where the program can be done only once, okay, like either the time of manufacturing, or I can also program it using some ROM programmer. So based upon the data storage mode, I can have volatile memory and non-volatile memory. An example for volatile memories are static RAM, dynamic RAM, and example for non-volatile memories are read-write memory, flash, EEPROM, EEPROM. Okay, so like these are some basics. Okay, like I think like you'll be having an idea regarding so these. So regarding the memory characteristics, so basically we have three memory characteristics, and those are area, speed, and power. Okay. So this area is an important parameter with respect to the physical implementation of VLSI circuits. So why? Because the silicon surface is itself very small. Okay. And in that small amount of silicon chip or substrate, like we need to implement so many circuits, so many devices. Okay. So smaller the area, so fit more devices per chip. So like so we have the lesser and lesser availability of area, and inside smaller amount of area, what we expect is to fit or to embed the more and more number of devices, right, per chip. So hence cost per chip decreases. So suppose if I am able to implement more and more number of devices in the smaller and smaller area, means I can have the reduction in the cost per bit. Okay. Hence, what we expect is we should be able to embed or fabricate more and more number of components, more and more number of circuits inside the available small amount of area. Okay. So the example for this is a 256 megabit of DRAM chip. Okay. And regarding speed, so the performance of chip is increasing rapidly. So when compared to the earlier days and nowadays computers, so you have a lot of difference in the speed factor. Okay, like earlier processors were very slow, okay, in operation. So but nowadays you have like it's very high processors are available, so which can operate in terms of megahertz, gigahertz of operation. Okay, so unless memory supports, you cannot build a system. Okay, so while designing a system, okay, so this role of memory is very much important. Okay, and what we want is our system should be having a wide range of memories. Okay, so as to store lots of information. So these the speed of memories will be specified in terms of access time. Okay, and this access time can be like in terms of microseconds to nanoseconds. Fine. So regarding the power, so accept the system to take less power. So like what we expect say from our devices is my device should be able to operate at a lesser power. Hence the system will be able to run for a longer amount of time. Okay, suppose if my system or design or my model is taking the less amount of power consumption, means so I can have more time in operation. Okay, so important as memory is used like in portable systems, example cameras, PDAs, and laptops. Okay, almost 50% of real estate is occupied by the memory. Like as you can see here, the importance of memory. So in the whole available silicon area, okay, almost 50% of the silicon space on the substrate will be occupied by the memory itself. Okay, so by this you can understand the importance of memory, like in the design of any computer based or electronic systems, okay, and designs. So now let me come with the actual syllabus. Here we study the circuit and operation of one transistor, dynamic memory cell, and so on. Okay, so let me start with this. Yeah, so some like actual syllabus according to like your VLSI design class is this. So some important concepts like regarding the design, okay, or some timing considerations or the ground rules, in designing any system. So for example, the design of a 4-bit processor. So basically, like we'll be using something called as a two-phase non-overlapping clock signals. Okay. So for the design of any VLSI system, so we can go for the use of the clock. Say for example, like if I go for the combinational circuits means, so for example, multiplexer, decoder, encoder, okay, adders, half subtractor, full subtractor. So like all these circuits that will not require the clock. So, but if I'm designing a sequential design means like I'll be in need of a clock. Okay, so some system may use clock, or some system may not be using the clock. Okay, so for all the sequential designs, so the clock input signal is a must. And in this case, so you can go for a use of a two-phase non-overlapping clock signal. Okay, so this two-phase non-overlapping clock signal will be used throughout the system, and I can refer that as phi1 and phi2. Okay, so the clock signals are being called as phi1 and phi2, whereas phi1 and phi2 are the two-phase non-overlapping clock signals, where always the phi1 is leading phi2. Okay, so this means that like always the phi1 clock will come first, and after that, so you can expect phi2 to be used in the system. Okay, so this phi1 and phi2 clock are as shown here. Okay, so where these two are exactly opposite. Okay, that means what? Suppose if this phi1 phi1 clock is high, means phi2 clock will be low, and if phi1 clock is low, means phi2 clock will be high. Okay, so at no time you can expect same values for both phi1 and phi2, as you can see here, right? So like at this moment, phi1 clock is high, and what is the condition of phi2? Phi2 is low here, right? And at this instant of time, phi1 clock is low, and here phi1 clock is, here phi2 clock is high. Okay, so hence these two are called as non-overlapping clock signals. Okay, at no time, right, these two clock signals will be at the same value. Okay, and basically, so for the for the read and write operation, okay, so this phi1 clock will be synchronized for the read signal as well as for the write signal. Okay, so we can have the use of this phi1 clock signal for read operation as well as for the read operation and for the write operation. And usually this phi2 clock, okay, so this phi2 clock will be used for the refreshing of data stored in the memory element. Okay, remember this. So like while designing the sequential circuits, okay, so we can go for a use of two-phase non-overlapping clock signals, and those can be named as phi1 and phi2. And always this phi1 clock signal, which is used for the read operation as well as for the write operation, will be synchronized with the phi1 clock signal, and this phi2 clock signal will be basically used for the refreshing purpose. Okay, means that this phi2 signal, right, so this phi2 clock signal will be used for refreshing the data stored in the memory elements. Okay, yeah, so again same thing is been written here. So the clock circuits to be considered are based on two-phase non-overlapping clock signal, and those are called as phi1 and phi2, and always phi1 will be coming first, and so next signal will be phi2. Hence we say that phi1 will be always leading when compared to phi2. And so this write operation will be ended with phi1. So means the phi1 clock signal will be used for the write operation, and phi2 clock signal will be used for the refreshing purpose. Okay, so as to retain the information stored in the memory cells. Okay, so we have a delay between the phi1 clock signal and phi2 clock signal. Okay, like as I told, this phi1 is always synchronized with the read operation as well as for the write operation. And second information is like regarding the charge storage. Okay, like in case of a sequential circuits, so we need to have the remembering of the previous conditions. Okay, so in sequential circuits, there is a necessity to remember the previous values or conditions. So for example, like in case of memory elements and in case of registers, where these are the example for sequential circuits, okay, we need to use the memory element, okay, right? So, so this charge storage can be a MOS capacitor, okay. So basically the MOS capacitors will be able to store the charge in them, okay. So this charge storage is called as dynamic storage, okay. Like it is nothing but the gate to channel capacitance, okay. Like we have seen this like gate to channel capacitance. Why? Because like inside a MOS transistor you can expect that action of capacitor. Why? Because the gate will be acting as one parallel plate, and the channel itself will be acting as the second plate of capacitor, and in the middle you have the dielectric, okay. Hence inside the MOS transistor you can expect the action of capacitor, okay. And this capacitance formed between the gate and the channel can be used for the storage of information or the data. So but like what is the main problem here is the stored charge will be leaked away in a short time, okay. Like even though we can use this gate to channel capacitance so as to store the information or the data, so but we cannot hold the data for longer amount of time, so we have a charge leakage problem. Hence the data will not be able to be stored for a longer amount of time. Hence the data needs to be refreshed. If at all you want to maintain the data for a longer amount of time, means I need to go for the refreshing of the data. And like I said, say for the refreshing of data, right, stored in the memory cell, so which clock signal should be used? Phi 2 clock signal should be used. By because this this Phi 2 clock signal will be synchronized with the refreshing operation, okay. Like again like these Phi 1 and Phi 2 clock signals are being shown here. So where always the Phi 1 clock signal will be coming first, and next we have the arrival of the Phi 2 clock signal. So at no instant of time, so these clock signals Phi 1 and Phi 2 will be the same value. Means suppose if this Phi 1 is equal to high, means Phi 2 will be low, right? And if Phi 1 is equal to low, means so this Phi 2 will be high, okay. So at no time you can expect Phi 1 is equal to Phi 2, okay. And regarding the hold time, okay, so up to what time you can hold the information stored in the cell is given by square CG into VDD divided by IS, okay. So where this square CG is the unit of gate capacitance CG, right, multiplied by the VDD, right, divided by IS, where IS is the source current, right. So next coming to the dynamic resistor element, okay. So we can have like this circuit to be acting as a dynamic resistor element. Like there we have this, so we have the formation of a transistor here, okay, and like this followed by a inverter, okay. So this inverter can be like used to negate the information, okay, stored at the input of this gate, okay. So here this Vin is clocked in by the Phi signal. As you can see here, the input is the clock signal, right? And like this clock signal will be able to charge the gate capacitance of the inverter, right? Like here it is, okay. So like this, like this we call it as a dynamic resistor element, and it is of type inverting dynamic storage cell, okay. But here we have the formation of the transistor, and for the gate, like I'll be applying the clock signal, okay. And like this represents a NMOS transistor, okay. And suppose if I have the application of clock, right, and if clock is equal to high, means like this transistor will be in the on condition, okay. And suppose if this like input capacitance is being charged to VDD, right, and at the output of inverter, okay, I can have the inversion of this input gate capacitance value, okay. So like again, like we have one more version of the same inverting dynamic storage cell, right. So but the main change here is, suppose if I go for a use of an NMOS device, means we know that this NMOS device is is weak in transferring the logic high. Okay, so hence to avoid the degradation of the signal, so we can make use of one transmission gate. Okay, so we have the use of one transmission gate, and like again we know that the transmission gate will be used to solve the problem of signal degradation. Why? Because so one transmission gate will be having the combination of so both PMOS as well as the NMOS. Okay, hence a full 0 and a full 1 can be transmitted say from input point to the output point. Okay, so we can make use of a simple NMOS transistor, or I can go for the transmission gate. Okay, and this we call it as inverting dynamic storage cells. Okay, so when compared to the non-inverting dynamic storage cells, means like again we have the same structure here. Okay, suppose if this pi is applied to the transistor, means I can have suppose like here if we have the logic 1, means like at the output of inverter 1 like we have 0. Okay, again this 0 is acting as input for the second inverter. Again at the output of second inverter, the same value will be present as that of the input. Okay, right? So we have the cascading of say such elements, right? And I can go for the addition of one more stage here. Okay, and for the read and write operation, I can go for a use of this phi 1 clock, right? And again, these two figures are the replication of the earlier figure. Okay, so where we have replaced this NMOS transistor with the transmission gates. Okay, and regarding the area consumption, so for the implementation of this inverting dynamic storage cells will be 22 lambda into 28 lambda, right, into 2, and that comes around 1200 lambda square. Okay, and this amount, I mean, like say this much amount of area will be consumed for which technology? For 2.5 micrometer technology. Okay, so where the amount of area to store is area per bit is 7500 micrometers square. Okay, and if I go for a CMOS technology, means like I'll be in need of 13,000 micrometers square of area. Okay, so next is 3 transistor dynamic RAM cell. So from the examination point of view, so this like so-called 3 transistor dynamic RAM cell, as well as a 1 transistor dynamic RAM cell and pseudo static RAM cell are very much important. So you can understand this. Okay, so we have a circuit for this, right? So the like heading for this is a 3 transistor dynamic RAM cell. Okay, so why it's called as like 3 transistor RAM cell, because here we have the use of 3 transistors. Okay, a 3 transistor dynamic cell uses only 1 transistor as storage element. Okay, so we can use this T2 transistor as the storage element. Why? Because at the input capacitance of this T2 transistor, the value can be read or written. Okay, so the value, so what you want to write will be stored at the gate capacitance of this transistor T2. Okay, and along with this, so we have separate transistors. Okay, so one meant for read and one transistor meant for the writing operation. Hence, we have in total 1, 2, 3 number of transistors. And like as usual, like we can so go for a use of the NMOS depletion mode transistor, like at the pull-up part, or I can go for a use of a CMOS transistor. Okay, so at the bottom part, okay, you find here only 3 transistors. Okay, T1 and T2 and T3. Okay, so let's analyze the operation here. So a 3 transistor DRAM cell, dynamic RAM cell, uses yeah. So as you can see here, so we have the use of 3 transistor RAM cell. Okay, and here like this transistor T2 will be used for the storage of the information. Along with that, so we have the use of so this T1 transistor, so for the write purpose, and we have the use of T3 transistor for the read purpose. Okay, and we have this so bus carrying the signals, and we have the ground line. Okay, so now let me see the operation of this. So the gate capacitor of T2 is used to store the information. Like here it is. Okay, so for doing the write operation. Okay, so like how we can achieve the writing operation into this RAM cell. Okay, so for writing operation, one more point here. Before you go for the read and write operation, so like we should know that so these write and read operations are mutually exclusive. Okay, that means what? Suppose if I'm doing the write operation, means that I'll be activating this write signal, and in that case, read signal will be deactivated. Okay, and if I'm doing the say read operation, means that I'll be activating this read signal, and in that case I'll be deactivating the write signal, right? Hence among these two, only one signal will be activated, right? Either read signal or the write signal. Okay, hence we call these two signals, write and read, are mutually exclusive to each other. Okay, so by keeping this in mind, right, along with the construction of this particular 3 transistor DRAM cell. Okay, so we have the use of T1 transistor and T2 transistor and T3 transistor. Okay, again the pull down part, and in the pull up part I can use either a depletion mode NMOS device, or I can go for a use of a PMOS. Okay, or I can go for a enhancement type people, enhancement type PMOS device. Okay, so now coming to the read and write operation. So we have the use of 2 additional transistors. Okay, so one meant for the write operation and one meant for the read operation. Okay, so now dealing with the write operation. Okay, so like here my aim is to read, my aim like here is to write some information, right, into the cell. Okay, so for this, like as I told, like these two signals, write and read, will be mutually exclusive to each other. Hence, for writing operation, like I'll be activating the write control signal, and I'll be keeping low the read signal. Okay, hence for the write operation, so this read will be maintained low or 0, and write signal will be activated, or write signal will be logical 1. Okay, so this logical state present in the bus is communicated to the gate capacitance of T2. Why? Because suppose if I select activate this write signal, means this T1 transistor will be on. Okay, hence the information present on the bus will be transmitted via T1, and that will be stored in the gate capacitance or input gate capacitance here of the transistor T2. So the information what you want to write is transferred right on the bus and via the on transistor T1. Okay, and that information logical 1 will be stored in the input capacitance of transistor T2. Okay, yeah. So the bit value will be stored in the gate capacitance of T2 while read and write are low. Okay, yeah. So suppose if this transistor like T1 is on, okay, why it will be on? Because now we are activating the write signal, hence this transistor will be on, hence the information stored on the bus, right, will be transferred via the T1 transistor, and same value will be stored in the input gate capacitance of transistor T2. Hence this corresponds to the write operation where we are writing 1 here, right, or we are storing the value of 1 in the input gate capacitance of transistor T2. Okay, so now going for the read operation. So for having the read operation, like I want to activate the read signal, hence this T3 transistor will be on. Okay, and suppose if this T1 is also on, means this T1 will also turn on the T2. Okay, hence the information right on the bus can be discharged via T3 and via T2 to the ground. Suppose if I assume that so this T2 transistor is not turned on, means the information stored on the bus will be held as it is. Why? Because if T2 is turned off, means this will act as an open circuit. Okay, so same information that is given here. So for having read operation, only read signal should be turned high. Okay, so only the read signal is turned high, and that is enough to turn on this T3 transistor. Okay, so the bus will be pulled down to the ground through the T3 and T2 transistor. Okay, suppose if this read signal is activated, okay, that means that T3 will be on. Why? Because so this RD signal is going for the gate of transistor T3, hence T3 will be on. And suppose if T2 is also on, means information stored on the bus will be flowing through the T3 and T2 transistor, and that can be going for the ground. Or if this T2 is in the off condition, means whatever the value is there on the bus, same value will be retained. Okay, why? Because now this T2 will be in the off condition, hence this part will be open circuited, hence the potential on the bus will be remained as it is. Okay, so otherwise T2 will be non-conducting and the bus will remain at high due to its pull-up arrangements. Why? Because so this transistor will be always on. Okay, always on means like this can act as a active switch. Okay, hence the VDD will be on the bus, means the bus value is now containing a value of 1. Okay, and there is no path for this high logic to be going to the ground potential. Why? Because now this T2 will be in the off condition. Okay, hence we can read high value, right, present on the bus. Okay, so for this, no extra capacitor is required for the storage purpose. Why? Because here we are using the input gate capacitance of transistor T2, hence there is no need to use, right, extra capacitors so as to store the charge. And regarding the area requirement, right, so the requirement of area for the fabrication of this 3 transistor dynamic RAM cell is 26 lambda into 21 lambda, and that comes to be 500 lambda square. And this much of area is required for this technology, for 2.5 micrometer technology. And the amount of area required to store 1 bit is 3000 micrometers square. Okay, so the area required per bit will be 3000 micrometer square. So for, say, from examination point of view, so you can practice the circuit of this 3 transistor dynamic RAM cell along with the how do you perform the read operation and the write operation. So for doing the read operation and write operation, we have here the use of 2 control signals, one meant for write, one meant for read. Okay, so next one is so 1 transistor dynamic RAM cell. Okay, so we have the use of only 1 transistor, and this can be used for the storage of the information or the data. So the stored data, like in case of this 1 transistor DRAM cell, here we have the use of capacitor. Okay, suppose if the capacitor is charged, means I can store the value of 1, and if the capacitor is discharged to the ground, means that will be storing a value of 0. Okay, so for this, we have the use of so 1 row select signal along with 1 read write control signal. Okay, and along with the use of this 1 NMOS transistor. Okay, so a DRAM cell consists of a capacitor connected by a pass transistor. Okay, so we have the use of 1 capacitor, and this capacitor is at the source end of this pass transistor. Okay, so to the bit line or read write line. Okay, so we have the connection of the drain to be connected to the read write line, and using this line, I can go for the read operation as well as the write operation. Okay, so the bit line is connected to the multitude of cells arranged in a column. Okay, so we have the arrangement of so many columns and rows here. Okay, and at the intersection of each and every column and rows, we have here such 1 transistor DRAM cells. Okay, so for the write operation, like how do we have the write operation? So data will be placed in the read write line, means I can activate this particular line. So by feeding a value of 1 or 0. Okay, so whatever value that you want to write, okay, right into the cell, okay, that value can be loaded into this particular line. Okay, so the data will be placed in the read write line, like either 0 I can feed, or I can feed the value of 1. Okay, so now the row select is activated. Okay, so once the row select is activated, means the gate will be like applied with the value of 1, right? Okay, hence the like this so-called the pass transition will be turned on. Okay, so once it is on, means I can expect the easy path. So via transistor, hence this capacitor, okay, separate capacitor used can charge, okay, for this value applied at the read write signal. Okay, so if logic 1 is placed on this read write line, means I can expect the charging of this capacitor. So now this capacitor is fully charged for the logical 1 applied for the read write line. Why? Because now I have activated the row select, hence this NMOS pass transistor will be activated, hence it acts as a short circuit switch. Okay, hence the CM, right, or capacitor can charge, okay, for this value placed on the read write line. So for the read operation, what I can do, so just enable the row select line, okay, and the stored data, right, on the capacitor will appear at the bit line. Here it is. Okay, so the refreshing is necessary, and sense amplifiers are required. Suppose if I go for this 1 transistor dynamic RAM cell, why? Because you cannot expect the capacitor to be holding the charge forever. Okay, hence I need to go for the refreshing or reloading of same data again and again periodically, so as to retain the data stored in the capacitor, right? And for this, like I'll be in need of the refreshing circuit, okay, as well as the use of sense amplifiers are also required, right? And regarding the area required is also been mentioned here. So the amount of area required to fabricate this 1 transistor dynamic RAM cell is 200 lambda square for 2.5 micrometer technology, and the amount of area required to store 1 bit of information is 1250 micrometer square. Okay. So we have the major problem like regarding the volatility. So means we have the charge leakage through this capacitor CM. Okay, and that can be the main demerit here. Okay, so this capacitor like cannot hold the charge forever or for indefinite amount of time. Hence, we need to go for the use of refreshing circuit, as well as the use of sense amplifiers will be also required here. Okay. So next is pseudo static RAM cell. Okay, pseudo static RAM or dynamic cell. Like this, I'll be discussing in the next video. Okay, so for this class, like we have discussed some information regarding the memories as well as the dynamic register element. Okay, so called the use of a single MOS transistor along with the inverter. So where I can have the reading operation or writing operation. And for reading and writing operation, I can synchronize the read operation and write operation along with this 5 clock signal. I mean, this 5 clock signal. And 5 to clock signal is basically used for the refreshing purpose. So we have a stick diagram of the circuit. Okay. And we saw the operation of 3 transistor dynamic RAM cell, where we use the T1, T2, and T3, where at the input capacitance of T2 transistor, this is used to store the value like inside the cell, and we have separate transistor, one meant for read and one meant for the write operation. Okay, so you can practice the circuit diagrams of 1 transistor and 3 transistor dynamic RAM cells along with the operation of read and write. Okay, so let me log out now, and let me see in the next class. Okay, so in the next class, I will be discussing this pseudo static RAM cell. Okay.